Saludos y bienvenidos everybody to episode 73 of the PGP podcast. Hey everybody, Josh Tobar, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, ready to rock and roll and learn about MTSS trauma. You know, this was one of our best shows we've had in the recent history. We had thousands of people view it. They liked it. It was a great experience. So he said, you know what, 1, 2, because this is something that's really hitting all of our schools across the United States. Remember that the PGP podcast is part of the Fantastic Four Network. Fantastic Four Network. We got one of our sisters on the call today. If you want to check it out on Facebook Live, you got Sean Hurd at 10 o'clock. You got Tammy and Shika at 10:30. And you've got El Jefe Principal Cafele at 10:55. I don't know. He said he was going to move the time. We'll ask Shika right now. He was moving five more minutes ahead. But right now, that is the network. And we are the anchor show for the Fantastic Four on Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. Please make sure that you like and share the show. This one and past ones, go to our YouTube, like and share it. Trust me, we ain't making money. The whole thing is about spreading the knowledge and all of the wisdom. The individuals on the call are just phenomenal. And you know what? Right now, we know that in public education, we have zero money. There is no money. People are going for elections, for bonds, for everything. So this is free PD for you. And on that same note, just remember that if you would like to be part of the show, reach out to myself, to this lady before she goes to Tanzania or Rwanda or Turkmenistan or Tajikistan. I don't know where that lady is part of the time. But reach out to us because you bring added value. It doesn't matter if you're in South Dakota, North Dakota, in Iowa. It doesn't matter. You bring added value to your experiences and that which we can all use. So how are you doing, Moreno, on this beautiful Sunday day?
It's a beautiful Sunday, Josh. Absolutely. You do not see my spiders, which means I am not in Houston, Texas, but I am sporting today because guess what? Our Houston Cougs are doing awesome. But yes, I'm doing fabulous, Josh. Thank you again. I'm glad you had a safe drive because I know you were rushing. You were rushing to make it because guess what? It's important to have this podcast on time and ready to rock and roll. So I do appreciate that you take the time. I know you had a busy, you were in Austin.
Yes.
And so Austin to Dallas is no quick drive because the state of Texas is not like this. It's like this.
Exactly. So you know what? Because I'm a hater to your Houston Cougars who are 4-0 and South Carolina, let me have some haterade. It's all right. South Carolina will bounce back. The SEC will be conquered sooner or later by the Gamecocks. Yeah, I just had a pleasure and shout out to Sean Kane, who had a ballroom full of guests Saturday and Sunday, presented the Fundamental 5 and the great things that are happening at Memorial Pathway Academy, my home, our home, where the Jaguars are, and showing everybody the things that we do to ensure student success. So it's been a great experience being part of that and sharing our ideas. And part of sharing those ideas before we get into that, the Chinchilagua moment. You know what? Shika, I don't think Shika or Constance know what Chinchilagua is. You know what? Adam, I know Adam does not know what Chinchilagua is right there. It's a Mexican game. And we play it during big fiestas, during the seasons. And we line up against the wall and we yell, Chinchilagua y arriba, boy. And we run and we jump on top of our uncle. And then the next one says, Chinchilagua y arriba, boy. We jump and we stack up. We become a human pyramid. It's all fun and games until someone falls. Until your little cousin falls and breaks his head open and grandma comes out with a bell with a chancla hitting everybody because that happened. Well, the Chinchilagua moment right now, thoughts is a great reflection piece like Principal Cafela always talks about, that us as educators, we know our stuff. You know, we work very hard. From first year to 33 years, doesn't matter. We're always working hard. But it's so important that we always sharpen our tools. I know the Fundamental 5. I've been using it for a large number of years. And, you know, that's part of the fuel of our campus. That's why we guess how many referrals we've had so far in 7 weeks? Guess how many office referrals? 4.
Wow, that's amazing.
4. And so the only way that you're able to do that is by practicing something repeatedly, creating those routines. And my idea today is just remember, hey, everybody, if you know something, you always have to sharpen your tools. You have to go back. If there's an author that really inspires you and you haven't read that book in a while, go back and read it again.
Mhm.
If there's a specific strategy that you've learned from a book, a podcast, Edutopia, Education Week, whatever it is, go back and reread it. And you'll say, oh, I forgot about that. Because right now, when I was sitting in the conference for Fundamental 5, I'm like, I forgot about that. So I am rejuvenated as an educator to go back tomorrow in a couple of hours and make sure that I'm on my A game for delivering instruction for our students. What are your thoughts there, Dr. Moreno?
Josh, you are so right about doing that. I've heard people tell me all the time, I already have 30 hours in that, or I've seen that, or I've done that. And I tell people, you know what? It's always good to go back and look. There's always something you can learn the second, third, or fourth time you've gone through it. So I totally am applauding you and giving you kudos, because we have so many tools out there that you don't sharpen. It's kind of like your own tools here at your home, right? You got to constantly kind of sharpen them up and get them back to the groove again. So awesome. We have to make sure that we're always on our A game every single day, because our kids need us at our best.
Exactly. And talking about the best, let's bring on this awesome best panel that we have. But before that, go back to our first show. This is show number 2, show number 1. That was episode 62. So go back to our YouTube and check out the content from our first show, and to this awesome panel of educators from across the United States. Boom, are dropping in. And here you go. Welcome, panel. Thank you for being here, giving some of your time. You know what? That's the commodity that we all are not guaranteed every single last day. Thank you very much for giving us some of your time and knowledge the next couple of minutes. Stick, Moreno.
Guys, I am super excited because just like Josh talked about just a few seconds ago, our first show was on fire. And so we had to come back and give it everybody another round. And guess what? We only stepped it up because all of you on this call, I mean, talk about what are we going to talk about? Trauma and resilience in education. And I can't tell you, every single one of you guys have some kind of, your hands are in all of that already. So I'm super excited to have you guys here because I'm going to learn so much from you guys. I know a lot of trauma in strategies, but guess what? Just like Josh was talking about, I know I'm going to learn something new today. So I really do appreciate you guys. But guess what? Even though there's a lot of people that may know you, there's others that don't. So guess what? We're going to start off with Dr. Shika Houston, my friend. Can you please share with the audience a brief background on the different roles that you've served in education, and which one was your favorite and why?
Absolutely. So I'm the co-host of the Real Academy and senior staff developer for Create and Educate. And through our free weekly live stream PD, as Josh said, I'm his sister in the work. We've impacted about 300,000 educators, approximately 7 million students. So we specialize in helping schools improve through our Real Resilience framework. And my trustmate in education, Dr. Tammy Taylor, and we were able to improve our schools 2 and 3 grade levels in 1 year at her elementary school and at my middle school. So at Chester County School District, I am the director of student support programs. I have been a teacher, assistant principal, and a principal. Now I'm at the district level. I would have to say that my favorite position has been being a principal. I love being a principal. And the reason was probably just that being able to interact so much with students and then the staff members in the building and the community, just that interaction just kind of gave me the jolt that I needed.
Amazing, Dr. Houston. Thank you so much. And I'm sure all of your followings are also following you today, because guess what? It's all about you telling us about your expertise, because I know that you have so much knowledge around this topic today. So thank you again for being with us this afternoon. How about you, Lori? And tell me your last name one more time, because this time I'm going to write it down.
No, that's fine. It's Desitel.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Miss Desatel, tell us a little bit about a brief background of your different roles around education and your favorite and why.
Well, I am, first of all, a assistant professor at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. And my passion is really the topic today, but rooted in neuroscience, and that is my discipline. So I travel really across the globe working with teachers and social workers, counselors, mental health professionals in understanding, how our nervous systems are impacted by, environment, relationships, experiences. And then we really help our teachers and all staff to meet our children and adolescents in where they are. Because oftentimes trauma can look like, we hear words like oppositional defiant, we hear, aggressive, violent. I mean, we have all these labels under IDEA and also the DSM-5. So it really is important to understand that all behavior is really rooted in nervous system regulation or dysregulation.
Amazing, amazing. And thank you so much. We're going to learn so much of that part of trauma because that's one part that I think many people, at least me, I would like to kind of know all of that side because we don't get to hear much of that. So thank you so much for being with us this evening. How about you, Adam? I'm going to jump over to the other side of the screen for a second.
Yeah, hi, I'm Adam Leto. I'm the proud principal of Granville High School here in Granville, Michigan. We're located just outside of the city of Grand Rapids in West Michigan. And I've been in education for 17 years. I've been a principal for 8 of those years here at Granville High School. I've been lucky to be in Granville Public Schools my entire career as a teacher and as an assistant principal and now the principal. We have done a fantastic job. The district, our staff have done a fantastic job of building a secondary MTSS model that we are proud of and we appreciate because we're seeing the results from our students and as well as just, the culture of our building. So I'm excited for this topic to learn from everybody, but also to share the great things that our staff has been able to come up with and how we do MTSS at Granville High School.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, so much. Looking forward to hearing more about that. Miss Constance Sherrod, our cheerleader.
Hi, my name is Constance Sherrod. I apologize for my raspy voice. I've been going a lot this week, and so I've been having to recuperate over the weekend and rest up. My background is in special education and MTSS. I, like Adam, also was in the secondary level when I started with MTSS. I used to be a high school interventionist, and so I've worked a lot with the high school students with putting MTSS in place, making sure that I think because we've dropped the ball a little bit with after they get beyond middle school, that MTSS wasn't important, but some of our students, it hindered them from graduating high school. And so I had to get in and get our teachers to see that it still was beneficial at the secondary level. I currently serve as a AP at an elementary school, a pre-K coordinator, and 504 coordinator. And so I've done this, as I have said in the past with Chica, is that I was at the central office. I went from being a teacher, then to central office, back to the classroom, central office, and now I'm back in a building. So I'm just excited to be able to continue to do the work with MTSS intervention. And I currently am the MTSS person as the AP in my building.
Awesome. And you get a virtual hug, pre-Kers. Woo! It is a tough. I was working with pre-Kers last week and I was like, oh my God, I could not do this like every day. It is tough. So congrats to you and thank you for your service because that is hard. And last but not least, Miss Charlie Peck. Tell us a little bit about your background and your roles in education and which one was your favorite.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. This is such an important topic. I've been in education K through 12 over 20 years. I started in elementary, but ended up teaching high school for 18 years. That, well, it's so hard to say that's my favorite because there's other roles but I did love that. I love that. And I did some leadership roles, departments, leadership, some district training and all of that. But I saw so many problems with mental health in our classrooms with our students. I didn't understand it. So I became a social worker, got my master's degree in social work and became a therapist. And so I do right now, my role in schools is a school-based therapist. I specialize in trauma and some excellent treatments that we're doing that I just can't wait to share. So I have a lot going on there, but I can't wait to learn from you all as well. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, I am so excited about this topic. And I'm so excited that I know I have the best because each one of you has a different lens at looking at this topic. So I'm super excited to have all of you guys all in one podcast. And I just want to let everybody out there, if you're watching this live and you see a question or a question that you want to get answered, please drop it in the chat. Let us know. We'll definitely make sure we answer it for you.
Big shout out to our number one cheerleader, Dot McKeever Jeter. Thank you for shouting everyone out, calling them to the show. Jefe, your Giants won. Congratulations. New York finally won a game. Awesome. I know that you're a happy young man right now. Rella Hicks, thank you for being on the show. Deanna McSwain from El Paso, nice to see you right now. Thank you for being here. So, educators, we all know one thing, that when we use a term in Texas, it does not mean the same thing in Idaho. When we use a term in South Carolina, it does not mean the same thing in Wyoming. It's similar. So, this is a two-part question, and we're going to start off with you, Charlie, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The easy part of this question is, who inspired you to enter education? Who inspired you? But this is the second part, because you know that we love alphabet soup in education, all right? We love alphabet. We like all these acronyms. And a lot of the people that watch or view our podcast are individuals that are new to the field. Mm-hmm. So they hear all these acronyms and they don't want to sound dumb and not ask what it is. So part two of the question is this, so that we educate everybody. What is your definition of MTSS and trauma? All right. So who inspired you, Charlie, to enter the field? And what is your definition based on, obviously your experience is different than an assistant principal. What is your definition of MTSS and trauma? And later on, panel, if you feel that it's been covered pretty much, then we don't need to continue on that question because, hey, you know what? I think Charlie covered it up. So Charlie, go.
All right. Who inspired me? Teenagers. I remember working with teens and knew that they needed people who were championing them, who believed in them. And so I didn't teach. I was coaching volleyball in high school and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the next move, but that is what solidified it. That's when I was like, I need to be in the school with these kids all the time. They're not kids, they're teenagers, very different. So that's the who, it's teenagers. And the MTSS model, I believe that just gives us a framework with how to respond to behaviors that we're seeing that we don't know what else to do with. We've got to categorize things. Our brain needs that. We need to put things in a category so we know what to do. It's for intervention and it's also for a response that's going to support the needs of kids. So that's the gist. It also gives the staff something to do when they don't know what to do. So again, that's the gist for me. And my definition of trauma is this. It is something that happened to us that we don't necessarily heal from. We might have a scar that might open up once in a while. So it's a wound. Trauma is a wound that the body remembers that might be pushed down in our subconscious mind that we don't think about. But those triggers that come up in our lives, open that up again, or at least that makes it a little bit more challenging for us to thrive in the role that we're in that moment.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. Constance, who inspired you?
I would say my teachers inspired me. I was a latchkey kid, and so being in the classroom, that kind of just inspired me to go into education because I saw the sacrifices that some of them were making to push me to be the best version of myself.
You have anything for MTSS and trauma?
Okay, so I agree with her definition of trauma. And when it comes to, I think, MTSS, I think some of our teachers were just missing the conception that it's a system of processes that are put in place, but also, it's a way to intervene with kids. And so, because in the school district that I used to work in, we had to just revamp our entire process because some of the things that we had were outdated and old, and they weren't helpful for 21st century students. And so I think just going through the revamping of that process and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, because what worked in the 80s does not work in 2025, 2024. And so just making sure that we have relevant things that are going to meet the needs of the students of today.
Thank you for sharing that. Adam.
Yeah, so I come from a family of educators. My aunt, uncles, my grandmother were educators. And so, I think early on, that's probably the inspiration that I got to look into it. But really, it was my teachers and coaches in middle school and high school that I kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do. And that was just reaffirmed as I went into college and whatnot. So thankful for all of them, for helping me, and still to this day help me and stay connected with them. So I agree. I like the idea of MTSS being described as that system, because I think the one way that I have kind of described it, and the way I like to talk about it, is it's given me an opportunity. I think given us, our staff, an opportunity to have answers to some of the questions that we have in education. When students aren't getting something, be it academic or, when there is a behavior and maybe the old way was just to say like, well, that's just how that student is, or that's just what it is. Right. When we talk about behavior being, communication, behavior can be learned, and we can, talk about those things and be able to have conversations, but also with academics. Right. And like those things, those academic behaviors that need to be taught, and put them in a systemic structure. And everybody needs different supports, and those tiers are so important because we don't always get it on the first attempt always. I like the idea of a system. I like the ability to have different options to respond to the different needs that we're, learning from our students and figuring out. So I think that helps give our teachers and staff that work in our school the ability to have an answer to some of those questions that maybe we haven't had in a long time. And, from a trauma standpoint, I don't think I have much more to add. Just those things. I like the idea of those barriers and those things that students come with, those lived experiences or those perceived experiences at times that prevent them from being their most authentic self and their most successful self, that we have to figure out how we can support them so that way, they can reach that full potential that we want them to be.
Adam, fabulous. Thank you for sharing, sir. Appreciate you. Lori, your thoughts?
So I think my inspiration really came from being a former special education teacher in the 90s. I knew in my gut that there was something underneath the behavior that I was not getting, that I was misunderstanding, which led to the work, my former work as a school counselor, and then in higher ed, working on my doctorate. But what I want to say real quickly, because I am going to have to jump off at 6:30 Eastern time, I agree with everyone's summation of MTSS. I think it is a very informative, practical framework. One of the things that we are beginning to roll out with applied educational neuroscience is MTSS for adults, because what I am seeing every day in the schools where I do a course release, I see it across the world, is that dysregulated adults are dysregulating kids. And I love this quote from Resmaa Menakem. He says, "Settled adults have settled kids." And the research is moving in that direction. We have so many educators and staff who are just exhausted. They're burning out. They're fatigued. And their neurodivergence is not being recognized. That's something else. I want to speak to trauma also just for a moment. My definition of trauma, and it was really adopted from Dr. Albert Wong, and I love his definition. It's when our nervous systems become overwhelmed. It's when sensory information comes in too much, too fast, too soon, for too long, and sometimes not, and too little. And it stuns us. And when that happens, those traumatic experiences never get digested or rarely get digested and metabolized in the nervous system. And when that happens, we get activated, we get triggered because we hear a sound, we smell something, someone's piece of clothing looks, unsafe. It cues danger. So anyway, there's so much to say, but I'm so grateful to be with all of you, and my deepest apologies for having to get off at 6:30 this evening Eastern time. But I appreciate the questions.
Thank you. Shika?
So, who inspired me like Charlie? I actually entered education through the alternative route. So, my background, I was a realtor and a mortgage broker before I got into education. And I was conducting a workshop for some young ladies on self esteem in my area and just saw myself in them, got really interested in becoming an educator. And one of the ladies there said, well, if you want to be a teacher, there is an alternative program for you to be able to do that. So I looked into it, and the rest is history. Once I got into education, I loved it and didn't look back. So trauma, I definitely agree with the definitions that have been stated. For me, MTSS is a mindset. Before we ever get to the systems, if you do not have the right mindset in place to understand that in order for us to really help children, and children deserve everything that we have to give them, you have to have that mindset that they deserve it. You have to understand why, and you have to make sure educators understand that this is not just something else to do, that is being done in other places, is helping children in other places, and you have to give them those stories so they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and why we have to give children our all. And it's because they deserve it. So for me, it's a mindset.
Thank you, panel, for sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it. Dr. Moreno.
Lori, since you're going to get off in 3 minutes, I figured,
So
let me give you this question, and maybe whatever you can answer. And then, because I really want to hear your thoughts on this one, it is a 2-part, so you can answer either one. What have you noticed since the COVID lockdowns regarding trauma? And then, have you noticed any trauma manifest through the students' behavior and grades?
Well, those are great questions. And absolutely, since COVID, I think we're all experiencing the residual impact of COVID. Yes, it was at the height 5 years ago, but when you think about our 5th graders that were kindergartners, or our little ones today, our early childhood students who were in utero or who were infants, emotions are contagious. Stress is contagious. We know that because cortisol leaks from the skin, and you don't have to be sweating. You just are in close proximity. And so our families, felt it. Our kids picked up on the stress of parents in the schools. Also, there was a lot of chronic unpredictability, which is traumatizing to the nervous system. We can take anything if we know it's coming. But when you live in that chronic immobility, or chronic unpredictability, which we all did, it just wears and tears on brain architecture and the nervous system. And so, yes, absolutely, we see it in behaviors that are so misunderstood. And when I talk about kids getting activated, I'm trying to move away from the word triggered. But when I see kids get activated, it could be a look, it could be a smell, it could be, someone bumped into them. And I'm not excusing behaviors, but we have to understand that that is energy lying in wait, and we all know what that is. At our house, we say it's not about the pot roast. It's like, you just get activated and you pop off, as my kids say. And, and it can be something small, because that arousal cycle, that trauma was never completed. So thank you for those questions. They're extremely important.
Thank you. I know you had to get off the call, but I just wanted to kind of just hear just a few more thoughts before you had to leave us. But thank you so much for sharing that. And even those little nuggets were good enough for me to kind of grasp it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And it's so nice to meet everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. And again, we have a family night planned, and I'm not going to miss that. But thank you. I hope we can all be together again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Let's continue, you guys. We're going to go with Adam next. So Adam, let me just make sure I'm going to repeat the question since I kind of that was quick. So again, it is a two-part question. The first part is, what difference have you noticed in schools since the COVID lockdown? And then the second part of that is, have you noticed any trauma manifest in students' behaviors and grades or grades?
Yeah. I think what was just talked about in terms of that predictability, right? Things were so unpredictable, and for our students, for our staff here in Michigan, we had to make those calls that said, hey, you had to go home for 10 days just like that because of the contact tracing. And all of a sudden, we were trying to do a simultaneously in-person and virtual instruction model, which was okay for what we needed to do. But then, you had a student who was just thrust into being home for 10 days and trying to learn a different style. So that predictability really spoke to me. And I think that's where, we've gotten better, but that was one of the things that I saw the most, is the need for those expectations, those well-communicated routines and things when we got back from COVID, that was part of our school-wide PBIS system. That, again, at a secondary level, you're like, why are we teaching these things? Like, how do we enter a hallway, or how do we go through this? But because of that predictability, we had to change up how we did school from every aspect. So I thought that was good. And I think that, students also, I wanted to talk about, like, I felt like they needed a connection because they lost that connection. And, I know that students, as they came back in from virtual or, the in and out phase, that there was a lack of connection, and we felt that tension, that students, it was quiet in the hallways at times. It was kind of like, they were just waiting for something to happen. And, it was not the smiling, the bustling, the energy of a high school at times. So that, that we felt that. And I think that as we're going, you're seeing some of those things, as you said, manifest in there. And we're seeing, yes, that quick temper, that quick, as she was saying, popping off at some things, that lack of patience and just wanting to get things done. But I also think that we're seeing students wanting to be perfect at things, and not being willing to push through those tough challenges. Because I also think that there was times when during COVID, it was easy just to give up on something, and, during virtual learning, because it was hard, it was different. Not saying that there wasn't, reasons for that. But at the same time, we don't want our students just giving up at the first hard thing. And that, we're talking about resilience, and that we talk about it as grit in our school, about how we can push through those things. So those are the things that we're kind of seeing, or have seen in our place.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. How about you, Dr. Houston?
So the biggest difference that I have seen since COVID has had a lot more to do with the adults. So, during COVID, everybody had these learning management systems, and, everything had to be in the learning management system to make sure if we ever go back into the COVID space, everybody knows what to do. How much practice do we need for this? And so now what we have during COVID, that message was basically sent that, you don't have to be at school to do school, because nobody was at school. So now the thinking is, you don't have to be at school to do school. COVID proved that. And because we continue to shuffle everything through these learning management platforms, we are still sending that message. Children do not have to be at school to do school, because everybody has everything in Canvas or whatever you use, Schoology. And so, do children really need to be at school? If you keep looking at our behaviors of how we are doing things, no, they do not. But unless you have one of those waivers in place where you have mastery-based learning. Some of our districts in our state have it. Otherwise, your children have to be there. But if this is the message that we're sending with, how we're doing things as adults, I think it is the wrong message to send. And this is why children are engaged, because all we have done is taken the worksheets and just put them in a learning management system. So all they're doing are, the worksheets or the assignments or whatever. It's very disconnected, and everything's in the learning management system. One of the children actually told me they wish that they didn't have tablets, because that's how sick of the tablets they are, because everything is on the computer. The books are on the computer. We don't even get real textbooks for the children anymore. And we know that in order to process information, they need to write. But for some reason, everything's digitized. And it's great in some instances. I am a paper girl. I can't read off of the computer. There are several children who cannot read that way either. And it may be helpful for administrators to not lug a bunch of books down the hallway, but that does not mean that's the best way for children to learn. I'm gonna get off my soapbox in a minute. So the other thing you asked about was a difference in grades. Yes, the grades have changed because, again, children don't feel like they need to be at school. So we got a lot of FAs. They're passing because everything is in the learning management program. They're doing the work, but they're not coming to school. But if they're still passing and not coming to school, is that a children's problem or is that our problem? I think it's our problem. So that's all I'm saying.
Man, you brought a lot of eye openers, because you're absolutely right. Everything that was on the computer, and I'm just like you. I'm a paper girl. I did some training, and they wanted to do interactive notebooks on the computer, and I was like, we need to glue, cut, and paste. We need that kind of stuff. Interactive notebooks online just doesn't do the work for me. So I get you, and I'm giving you snaps on that one.
Thank you.
Awesome. Miss Charlie Peck, what do you have to say about this COVID lockdown and how trauma kind of manifested? And then look at how does it affect student behaviors and grades?
Yeah, I think a lot about this actually. And a lot of people didn't want to talk about this anymore after COVID kind of, went through all of it. They're like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, but we got to talk about it because it did actually have some lingering effects. It had some good effects, actually. Some good things happened. We did learn. We learned about what wasn't working in education, and we learned what could work for some kids. Some kids actually did better with these virtual environments. Some kids actually were protected when they were going through trauma and had severe social anxiety. It actually gave them a different outlet. So we did learn some positive things, not that COVID was good itself, but some kids lost their parents. I was still teaching when COVID happened, and one of my students in the first week lost her mother. So there is that, right? That was one piece. And then how did those kids get support? And then they're further isolated from their peers and other adults who are looking after them. So that in itself was difficult. The other piece too is we didn't report kids as much. I mean, we couldn't see kids who were struggling or potentially in abusive situations. And we had to send those kids back home to those environments, and we didn't get to look after them and protect them. So that was really tough. That was really tough. One thing that I find the most is this is could be leaning positive or negative, whoever you talk to, but we got hyper focused on mental health and utilizing our schools as a means to improve it. And so we looked to our schools more, which is the work I've been doing for years. And so I was like, great, we are now utilizing our schools more for mental health. But guess what? Our teachers are not equipped for that. And there's a lot of pressure on them. So we've got to look out for their own mental health and well-being. And we also do need to better utilize our schools, but that means we need to work with the teachers and equip them better and all of the adults surrounding our kids. And so that's why we're doing work on the college level with those teacher programs, is equipping them before they go into the classroom. By the way, when they're with those host teachers who are close to burnout, that's not helpful either. So those are some of my thoughts. I have a few more, but I'm going to pass it on.
I love the fact that you mentioned that we are now getting them trained before they go into our classrooms. And so kudos. I hope there's more colleges out there that are doing that, right? More universities that are preparing our teachers for that, because that's a new role now, and we got to make sure that there's so many teachers that are in there now that need it, that I'm glad that we're at least getting them more equipped. So last but not least, Constance Sharon, I know you have all these notes because I see you jotting those down.
So I think the only thing that was not mentioned was there's an increase in anxiety amongst students. And so I think looking at it from the lens of being a 504 coordinator, over this time, you've seen more students struggle with anxiety like never before. And not just the students, but I think sometimes educators as well, because in our line of work, I know it's not just in Mississippi, teachers are also, struggling a little bit with anxiety, and some are even having to be put on medications to help cope with the day-to-day with being in the classroom. And another thing that sticks out is the referrals to special education because of the behaviors in the classroom. Now there's like, oh, let's pass this on to special education. We don't want to go through the MTSS process. There's something going on. They need an IEP. And so that's what I've seen an increase in the most. But that goes back to what Dr. Houston said. It's a mindset thing. And so because it's a mindset thing, we're struggling a little bit with trying to keep it, deal with trauma in education and being resilient as we work through the things that we, to meet the needs of our students.
Absolutely. And I love those comments that Edwin Garcia is putting out there, because those are absolutely facts. So thank you so much, Edwin, for chiming in and dropping some of your knowledge as well, because those are some good points that you're putting out in the universe.
And that's why he's going to be a guest in 3 or 4 weeks on the show, dropping more knowledge in a couple of weeks. So let's peel back the onion. Adam, let's peel it back a little bit more. Because like Shika was alt-cert, Madi was alt-cert, and right now, practically all our candidates are alt-cert. And they don't know about the semi-training we received in college about discipline. So, because we're not going to go into that. There's a difference between misbehavior and making bad choices because of trauma. A novice, whether through the regular pipeline or alt-cert, does not know the difference. There's a difference between rolling your eyes or you're wearing the cologne of somebody that triggered, just like Doc Lori said right now. And that makes you go into the turtle shell. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's peel back that onion a little bit. In your opinion, is there a way to differentiate between regular eye rolling, like, ugh, you're so 6'7", and yeah, that trend, I don't like it. We need to stop that. Stop it, kids. Stop it. Stop 6'7" right now. We don't get it, and it's annoying. But besides,
Josh, you have to do this 6'7" like this.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. Okay, got you. I apologize. So, Adam, what's the difference between just misbehaving and an action that is caused by trauma? I know there's no magic bullet to this question, but what has been your experience leading a campus because you have to deal with this, being the principal. Mm-hmm. You and your APs have to deal with the repercussions of a choice by a child. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, when you see behavior that kind of, I guess the perception would be that it comes out of nowhere, right? I think that's the initial response from us. Like, what just happened? Why did that happen? But it's that visceral, that true anger, or that almost irrationality when you're working with a student, or you're trying to have a conversation with a student, that they're not even being able to comprehend what you're asking them in simple terms. That I think we've talked to our young staff, and we've talked a lot about it, is like, it's hard to process that in a moment, right? And I love the idea, and I wrote that down about a settled adult, having a settled kid, because you can't personalize that response right away, because then we just escalate that, right? But that's hard, especially when you're leading with our young teachers who are going into it. They're nervous about what's going in there, and then they have this thing, and then it's become this power struggle. Do I need to just shut this down right now, or how do we deal with it? So I guess, I've seen it happen where, I think you get used to it of like, all kids being, just like, oh, whatever. And usually there's some understanding, like, yeah, I know what I was doing was wrong, but it's that irrational, like emotion that's happening. We had a student a couple of weeks ago, just, very upset. And, I was just trying to get him down from the cafeteria to the office, and, he just wouldn't do it. And, I just stood with him. But in that moment, he didn't feel like he had control of the situation. And, that's really hard, because we were trying to take control of the situation to get them to a place. So we ended up having a conversation on a bench outside the cafeteria. Right. But I guess, I don't know, the sign of when it's becoming, a trauma response or just general teenage, behavior, is I think that it's that escalation of emotion, and then that complete, lack of ability to want to have a conversation, or, I guess I'm not sure what the word I'm trying to say is, but like that ability to reason with that. But then all of a sudden you see that, like, as soon as you're having that conversation, you get them in a setting, that emotion drops, and then they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, this just, and then you're starting to get to the heart of it. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that, but in a way that honors the student, and, but also keeps the classroom in a place where we can get the learning that we need done. So.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. Constance, thoughts?
I loved his response. Now, all I thought about was being in a high school setting, is that if I had a relationship with a student, I could de-escalate them, pretty good, because I knew what would trigger them and what wouldn't. And so if it was a young man and I knew he didn't respect authority figures, I knew that males couldn't approach him. And so I would have to intervene sometimes and say, hey, let me go intervene first, because he's not going to calm down if you go. And so I think it's just being able to know the kids and having relationships with them. And even if you don't, being okay knowing that I need to give them space and step back, because sometimes they do need space. As long as they're not harming themselves or others, it's safe to kind of, drop back a little bit, but then let them know, this is not appropriate, and still let them know that, their behavior could cause them to get in trouble if they were not within the four walls of the school.
Okay. True facts. Shika.
I agree with everything that's been stated. And what I would add is I used to tell my staff a lot of times, this is not rocket science. I didn't enter into the regular education. I came through the alternative route, so I didn't have that background. However, I am a human, and I know how to relate to humans. So we have to put some humanity in the help. It only requires two things: what's wrong, and then figuring out, well, what do they need? And once you have those two questions answered, the rest of what you need is that system to be able to figure that out. Now, as a teacher, I didn't really have the time to figure that out as I did as an assistant principal. And so when you're a leader, you have to know what your teachers are able to do with 25 and 30 people sitting in front of them. They can't get to what's wrong and what do they need. So you got to make sure it's a system in place and a person to figure out what those things are for the children. And so as an assistant principal, I was able to sit down with children to figure out, hey, what's wrong? And then work through what they need and figure out, with the people that I had in place, what those things were. Sometimes it was just as little as, okay, before I while I'm on my laps, when I'm clearing my mind every day and nobody's allowed to walk with me because I'm trying to get away from the people. I need a minute. There is some students that I can pick up on these walks. These are the only students that are allowed to walk with me. And before they get into class, we do our laps, we talk. That is what they needed. They needed an outlet. They needed somebody to talk to. They needed to know that somebody cared about them. And once they had that, referrals stopped. People stopped sending them out of class. And if they did get sent out of class, guess what? You're not going to make me look crazy. I'm not going to let you walk around the school with me and then everybody see you getting put out of class every 5 minutes. So if you want to walk with me, you better be acting like you got some sense. And that's all they needed. Okay, they did it. So, it's not that simple for everything, but that's just one example. So just making sure that we are putting some humanity in the help. It's not that difficult.
Thank you. So, and get those steps in, Shika. Get those steps in. Charlie.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Chica, because it is about making the help or the adults surrounding our kids better informants. So they don't have to be the therapist, but with some information and guidance, they can be better informants so that the mental health team can actually take care of these kids. And so sometimes trauma, you can't tell what it is. Sometimes I think a kid who has struggled with something pretty complex comes to me and I'm working in therapy and I'm digging for that trauma. And then I'm like, this isn't trauma. It's not held in the body the same way someone else is holding on to the trauma. It's not a wound for them. It's actually not, they've overcome it. So their nervous system isn't dysregulated like I thought they would to the trauma. It's to something else. And so when we hear in education that teachers, they need to have the relationships. Well, it is so vital for this reason. We can help them understand the importance of attachment. So when we're talking about trauma and we look at attachment types, if you've thought of a kid before, everyone's known that kid who's been disinhibited. There's actually a disorder called disinhibited social engagement disorder when they have no boundaries and they'll go and run over and sit on your lap and hug you like, oh my gosh, this kid really likes me. And really what we need to teach teachers is that's trauma. That's a trauma reaction. That's an attachment problem this kid has. We need real clear boundaries around it for this kid. So those kind of things, that psychoeducation, the skill building for teachers is, and I say teachers, but I mean staff. And this goes beyond. This is after school programming. This is bus drivers. This is caretakers. This is the office staff is really important too, that they have this information. And so what we need to understand about that complex trauma is that's a wound with the relationship. So if we think about it like this, and I'll make this short because it could be, there's so many options here, but what I saw a lot as a teacher is the dismissive, the insecure, avoidant kid who they had a caregiver, usually it's one caregiver, could be a parent, but a caregiver who often rejected their emotional needs. And now the kid learns to minimize the display of a need. So they'll be like, I'm okay. Or they're hurting, like pain in the brain shows up as much emotionally as it does physically, but we don't always see that externally. And so they'll act like it's okay. I don't need help. I'm okay. I'm fine. Let's not go there. They put up that emotional wall. So we need to understand the importance of the relationship so we can identify those things so we can be good informants and then build that solid relationship for that kid who may never have had it.
Oh man, Charlie, that's so true. That hits close to home. And I'm honest. My parents left me alone. I'm a child of divorce, and I didn't grow up with my parents my sophomore, junior, senior year. So those formative years, I didn't have an adult. I had a lot of Budweiser, but I did not have an adult around me because I was self-medicating. Facts. And so now, just what you just said, it triggered something in my head. I don't know how to take compliments. I don't know. I push them away. So when people say something like in a positive, I don't know how to deal with that. And so I like to share that because it's facts. Oh, Josh, you did good with this. I'll go, okay, let's move on. It's not about me. Because you see those formative kind of things, it does create those eternal scars. And the inner child will always be crying. He will always be crying because of lack of something that they didn't have during the most important part. So thank you for bringing that out there. Big shout out to Jorge Valenzuela. Dr. Jorge Valenzuela will be here in 2 weeks, I believe. And Dr. Joe Griffin, thank you for having me on your platform. Check out his show on Sundays right before Stick.
Oh my God, let me just tell you, I just want to make sure everybody, if you are watching this live or on the rebroadcast, please like it and share it, because let me tell you, those were some really good highlights that was just shared by everybody regarding trauma. So, and thank you, Josh, for sharing that, because that kind of talks a little bit about what we're talking about and how to get to the root of the problem. I think someone said that. Edwin Garcia said that in his comment there. But thank you again. Make sure you like it, you share it, and because everybody, just like Charlie said, it's not just teachers, it's everybody. It's your teachers, your staff, your office staff, your bus drivers. It's everybody. So please make sure we do that. Let's go on to Constance. I'm going to start off with you this time, my friend. Let's talk about your observation. What are the biggest challenges educators face in implementing strategies to address trauma in schools? Because there's little things that teachers can do to kind of help minimize some of the trauma that our students are enduring. So what are some of the strategies that you think that we can easily implement in our schools?
I think the first thing that we should start with is professional development, the training piece, because it's easy to, get into a professional development and hand out a sheet of paper and say, hey, these are strategies for us to try. But when I say professional development, I mean actually some training where you may have to go through some simulations of this is a scenario, and if this was a student, this is possibly how you would handle this scenario. Because I think oftentimes in education, we push out initiatives, but we may not properly train the way we need to. And that just keeps teachers from saying, oh, well, this is something else for me to do. They're asking me to do this. They just asked me to do this last week. And so I say we need to start with training first. That's just the first thing that comes to mind, is making sure that you train. And oftentimes in my role as a leader, if I didn't lead by example, oftentimes my teachers would just, sometimes take it as a joke. So even with MTSS, if I needed them to implement something, if I didn't go back to inspect what I expected, then it would not get done. And so I think just training and being able to be an example, but then also follow up with them to make sure that some of the things that you have asked them to do, the suggestions that you have made, to see if they need any help along the way, to see if there's things that you need to change, pivot, and move on. Because oftentimes we make plans, but we don't go back to check those plans. And so that's my advice.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much. How about you, Miss Charlie Peck? What do you see as some challenges?
This is the work I do. So this is right in the work that I think needs to be done. And Constance, you nailed it. It absolutely needs to be training, but it can't be something more they have to do. So it has to integrate into everyday practice. And we have to use change theory here. We have to make sure they know how it benefits them. And so we need to let them know that it's going to reduce their feelings of overwhelm and the gist, and find joy. Like really what we're all trying to do here is find joy, not only in our personal lives, but our professional lives. So that's how we appeal to them. And then here's what we need these two things to master. We need to master being hyper aware of ourselves. So self-awareness, we have to master that skill, and patience. Patience leads to calm. When we show up as calm and we're super aware, it is a skill that we need to practice, but those are key in our education system, and it is key to our life. I mean, that's how we're going to show up to everybody in the way that we need to, especially kids, but also to the people we lead. And then again, one last thing, again, there's a lot I have to say about this, but the last thing I will say is we need to learn to assess for suicidality. We need to learn to get real comfortable and have permission to say, are you thinking suicide? Do you have a plan? And notice what those signs are, because we're losing kids to suicide when we could be paying attention. We just don't know what to do or what to say. So let's give them that information.
Wow, that is facts. That's so true. How about you, Dr. Houston?
I agree with everything that has been stated. Definitely more professional development on being trauma informed. One of the things that I noticed as an administrator that would show up in my African-American males a lot of times when I sat with them, I would see that they were depressed. But a lot of times that depression that I was able to see in my office when they were more vulnerable with me was showing up in the classroom as anger. It was showing up as, more risky behavior, outburst. It was being misdiagnosed as something else because it manifested in a different way outside of that place where they felt safe to be vulnerable. So I definitely think that professional development is really needed in order to make sure that everybody understands that sometimes these things don't manifest themselves the same way. Sometimes when people think of depression, they only think of sadness. It doesn't project that way a lot of times for males. Males are more irritable, angry. It shows up differently. And so unless people are trained, they don't know that.
True, true, true. Thank you. And last but not least, Adam, how about you? What else?
Yeah, I think Constance started us off on the right foot there, and one of the things that we found success with was that foundation of a mindset of when you're doing this work, you have to believe, like, our core three things with behavior is that behavior is communication, behavior can be learned, and then behavior can be changed. And I think that without that mindset, and I think that comes to the professional development and that understanding and that true understanding of what those three things mean and how we can implement those. And we talk a lot about controlling what we can control. I think too often we want to blame and dismiss and point the finger other places, and that's natural. We have a lot of things we get pointed and blamed for in education, but we need to understand that we can't dismiss and say that, well, this is somebody else's thing, right? Like, we can control how we meet a student at school in our classroom, how we can connect with them, how we can, Charlie talked about patience. We can control our emotions as well. And so, that mindset of what behavior is and how that foundation is, and then we figure out what we can control. And then I think we just need to help our teachers and staff, with whoever works in a school building, understand who the supports are and what the different, systems that we can activate to support students once we can identify where that student needs help. And then the more that they understand that, the more that we can use those systems that are in place, rather than just saying, well, that kid was just upset today and let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing, because those are really hot topics out there. And that's a true, suicide is real. And unfortunately, we have to learn how to see those signs and better support our kids. And so thank you so much for sharing that, because that's one topic that I think we need to really look at to really support our kids.
So, like I said, the majority of the shows that we've had, all 73, are made for the novice and for the refresher aspect of it. Sometimes we need to hear it again just to, I remember that. So right now, you all mentioned exactly, to me, the best gift we could give our team members is PD, the appropriate PD for your learning community. Not because it was at a conference and you dug it. Does that match your learning community? No, so then eat it. Don't bring it. So this is one of those things. So I start off with you, Shika. Yes, we understand that we need to provide our team members with PD. But what other things do at the campus level, what do administrators need to do, and at central office, to make sure that this becomes more? Because it starts at the top. Mm-hmm. Okay, it starts at the ivory tower and it goes into the campus level. So those two levels right there, what can better be done to support the everyday bloodstream of a campus?
Absolutely. And everybody knows, the teachers and the administrators, I'm one of their biggest advocates at the ivory tower. They probably would not have me at the ivory tower if it was up to them, because I cause too many problems, but it's good trouble. So one thing that we've done in our district is we have made sure that we have mental health counselors for the entire district. So you're just making sure that we have the right personnel in place. I actually helped to get a grant funded this year as well, where we're going to hire even more support staff members. And these are going to be our crisis personnel. So with what we have been experiencing, especially at the elementary level, is that children sometimes are more likely experiencing some type of crises that cannot be handled by the teacher and sometimes can't be handled by the administrator. So more people, more staffing is needed. So, in those budget meetings, in those grants sometimes that go back to the state, make sure that you have people at the ivory tower who are putting in for the money to get the personnel in place to be able to be more of a help in the buildings, and make sure it's an all hands on deck. A lot of times I go to schools and help with children or try to find solutions or try to figure out what's happening where more personnel is needed. So definitely making sure that we have the right resources in place so that we can have the right systems in place.
Awesome. Charlie, I know that you go around the country talking at different conferences, and your audience has tons of administrators. What do you talk to them about preparing, both at the central office level and at the campus level?
Yeah, so we can't wait for change to happen externally. It's not going to. We've seen that. We had a ton of resources and money and everything through COVID, and we still are having problems and sometimes worse. And so change has to come from within the system. And so that's why we use cohort leadership teams that we equip with this language we've talked about, or how to ask those hard questions. And so then what happens is other people see that there's change there and they want to become a part of the team. So we don't go for the people who don't want the change. We go with the people who want the change and who will champion it and work together cohesively as a team. And we equip them so they can model it within the community. And the last thing I will say here is there's therapy treatment. There's treatment called art therapy. I want everybody to look into it. Accelerated resolution therapy is for PTSD, but it can also address depression, anxiety, major depression disorder that's really plaguing our kids. But there's so much, even ADHD, there's so much it can treat that a lot of people don't know about. So look into that. And I think from a systemic level, we need to encourage that through our EAP programs for teachers. We need to start with teachers who are showing up dysregulated and help them find their calm.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Adam, you're in the chair, brother. You're in the chair. What does it look like? What do you tell your colleagues?
Yeah, I think you have to have a true vision of what you're trying to accomplish and what we want to do. And so that way you can effectively communicate that, right? And then I think you need to have space to listen as a leader to what is going on. And, too often, leaders and, administration is accused of not listening to those and being able to sit down and say, hey, what are we actually seeing? And what is your experience with this? And then finding ways to get the supports and the resources, as Dr. Houston mentioned, to the individuals that are seeing the front lines, if you will, of what's going on. But I think, listening and then setting out a vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And then just adjusting and being flexible and being willing to say, like, if we tried something and wasn't working, being able to move and adapt to those things. But the training and the ability to have the open conversation, I want to re-say that again as well, is, we were fortunate to partner with Corewell Health here in Michigan to do some, we called it blue envelope training with, identifying suicidal ideation, suicidal habits. And, we did that as a whole staff training. And one of our teachers mentioned to me, like, Adam, we hadn't done this in a long time. And, for me, that was just that wake up call of like, this needs to be more of a regular thing that we're doing, and making sure that we have the people who are seeing the students every day equipped with the tools and the resources to again, activate the systems that we have.
Facts. Big time. Got it. Well, Constance, you know what? AP, 504, MTSS. You got it all, young lady. You got that big gumbo right there. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I want to stretch this out, but I think everything that I wanted to say has already been said. So I think we can move on.
Beautiful. And this is a part of the show where we like to remind you, if you're looking for some, it's that time. talking about trauma, there's two periods in education that Hiroshima hits. It's about to get there, late October and November. That's when the troubles start. And then March, April, the second Nagasaki falls. There's two bombs in public education. So if you need something, hey, educator, Superintendent Glenn Robbins, Calming the Chaos, great book, The Stoics on how to deal with leadership through troubled times. Right now, the discipline kind of thing is hitting, right? The discipline thing. Kevin Curtis, great book about establishing patterns of behavior on your campus at the district level, campus level, classroom. And he shows you, he gives you the printouts on how to do that. And if you need some refreshing talks, 23 stories from Barbara Bray. Yours truly reads chapter 23 on it, on how we are successful at Memorial Pathway Academy and Socorro High School. There's a young lady that just wrote a book. She's down in the corner. You want to show that book there real quick, Charlie?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, it's our book with Joshua Stamper, by the way, too. Former administrator. We wrote it together. Language of Behavior.
And if you want more about that, episode 61, her and Josh were on the show. Check it out and then buy the book. You need those tools for success. Stick.
Gosh, I can't believe how much knowledge has been dropped already. And we're not even over. We're almost. But I mean, we have some more things to cover, especially when it comes to our teachers. So I'm going to have Charlie start us off with our question regarding teachers. So what effective strategies are out there for our teachers so that they can create a safe and supportive environment? I know some teachers sometimes have like fidget items. Sometimes they have like a little calming space. What can teachers do to help our students regulate that outburst or that calming space for them?
Okay, so we always do rapid reset. So I'm going to practice with you all right now. Everyone get a thumb up and point your finger at your thumb. And all you're going to do is switch. And then you're going to try it again. And then you're going to switch. And you're going to go back and forth and switch, go back. This is called the finger thumb switch. Nobody's going to get it the first time because your brain isn't wired for that. But what did you notice here? Well, we noticed that we lightened our load a little bit. Our energy shifted. We started to access the prefrontal cortex and started to refocus. And a little laughter goes a long way to shift the energy of the classroom. It's free. It doesn't take long. It's easy to remember. And the kids will be more engaged and attuned. So what we need to do is catch those kids when they're starting to get a little fidgety and integrate those little practices. There's tons of these rapid resets that we can do, but we have to notice when we need them. And more importantly, we have to notice when we need those shifts too, because we can sneak them in our day that way too. That's just one of many, but I'll pass it along from here.
Charlie, that was cool. That was really cool.
Pretty
So,
awesome.
snaps to you, my friend, because it didn't cost anything. It was free. And guess what? It worked for me for just a second there. It was kind of, so thank you so much. And I hope my teachers out there in the virtual world, or even administrators who can really support our teachers, that's a really cool way of doing that. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Online, quick strategy right then and there. Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Houston, how about you?
This is more or less getting into like understanding what some of the kids are going through. It was an activity one of my behavior interventionists went around and executed with the teacher. So shout out to Miss Brown. But she called it the paper ball activity. So the children, they had to write down things that, they wanted to get rid of, things that were heavy, weighing heavy on them, big pressure. They weren't supposed to put their names on it. They wrote them all down, got it out, balled it up, and threw it to the front of the class. So what she did was she collected all of the papers, put them in a plastic bag. Later, planning, teacher goes through those papers, and now you see what your children are bringing to class with them every single day. And so that really gave the teachers that mindset of, wow, I'm sitting here talking about a pencil, and this child didn't even have any electricity and water yesterday. it puts things in perspective. So I loved that activity.
I love that activity. I've done it before, but I didn't go back and read them. I think I should have gone back to read them because I think I missed that step. So thank you so much for reminding me of a strategy that I had, but I needed to go one step further. So thank you so much for reminding me and telling everybody else out there a wonderful strategy to kind of help us remember and put us in that mindset. Thank you so much, Shika. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think the ability for teachers to share just who they are and just talk about real things in life and be vulnerable at times, you can set that culture in your classroom a little bit for students to share, because everybody's coming in trying to feel things out, or they're trying not to get made fun of or something. But I think the most successful teachers that I see in our building are the ones who are willing to be goofy, willing to share, willing to talk about a tough moment, being able to just share a little bit about life. And I think that early on, as a young teacher, I know that was like counter to what I was told to do. You just talk and you teach, and you just you got to be kind of a brick wall up there. But I think more and more students now want to see authenticity, and if they can see that, they'd be more willing to feel comfortable, share their things, and not feel judged.
Yeah, I used to, when I was a first year teacher, they told me, don't smile till after Christmas. And how that is it's such a wrong message now. The kids need to see that we're human ourselves. And so thank you for reminding us. How about you, Constance?
I guess maybe a strategy that I think teachers can try is maybe some mindfulness activities. Maybe take 5 minutes toward the end of class, instead of doing an exit ticket that requires students to write. Maybe take a breathing exercise and ask the students to breathe in on 6 counts, release on 4 counts or whatever. Just something so that as they transition to the next class, they have time to reset maybe any negative thoughts that took place in that classroom. That would possibly work for upper grades. It could potentially work for the younger grades as well, because sometimes our younger kids, if they're asked to put things away and do something they don't prefer, they tend to, you see behaviors. And so I think the mindful activities will kind of help them calm down. And that's my little one that you hear in the background.
No problem. And I have a lot of stuff going around here too, so you can hear a lot of sawing going on. So don't worry, it happens when we're live. But thank you so much. There's 4 strategies right there, ladies and gentlemen, out there in the virtual world. These are great strategies to put in place in your classroom to help, again, regulate our kids so that they can be much more successful and focused on the task at hand.
Now, Constance, we always leave out this very important group, the parents. A lot of the trauma is at the house, and it's brought to us. And even we tell our team members, don't bring the stuff to your classroom. We tell the kids, stay positive. You can't, just like the example, you can't if you haven't had water in 2 days, or you're couch surfing, your family's couch surfing. Or what about the people right now in California that their houses have not been rebuilt? What about the people in Hawaii? Their houses haven't been rebuilt. The hurricanes we had a couple of months ago that destroyed everything all the way to West Virginia. Those kids aren't in school. I mean, they're not in their home. All that trauma is still lingering, and we just forget about it because that's not part of the news cycle. But those learning communities, they got to deal with it every day. So how do we bring in the Constance? You're in the trench with this. How do we bring in our parents to? We don't put them on the defensive, because some of them are like, you don't need to know my business. You don't need to. Hey, calmate, calm down. I'm here to help you. How can we coordinate this to where your child, when they come here, they feel comfortable? So, Constance, what idea suggestions do you have for a campus on how to bring in the parents, or for the parents to talk to us about their obstacles in life?
Well, Josh, I'm happy that you asked me this question, because that's one of the things that I've talked about with being in AP in the building that I'm currently in. I've had to have this conversation with my administrator that I currently work with, and I told her that I think that we need to become more comfortable having Saturday sessions where we train our parents. Because sometimes in my community, we have young parents, and sometimes our parents don't know strategies that they can use to help with the child's behavior. Sometimes our parents are not young, but they're older, where you have grandparents raising students also that come to school. So I think just having some informative Saturday sessions or embedded sessions where parents can come to and kind of see how they better can support students. And then I guess just being able to be, as Adam and I think other people have said, vulnerable, letting them know that we're human, that if we work together as a community, we can get our students the help that they need, because it takes a village to get our students where they need to be. And what you did Monday may not work Tuesday. And so just being able to have different strategies and different things to do throughout the day. So even, if something worked at school, then maybe the same strategy will work at home. But if we don't teach it to our parents of our babies, then they may have those meltdowns more at home and then come to us even more aggravated. So just being able to share the love with the strategies that we're using at school, being able to use it at home as well.
Thank you, Constance. Adam, you're in the chair, brother. Talk to us.
Yeah, so this reminds me, if you've not read Talk to Me by Kim Bearden out of the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia, it's a great book about just how to partner with parents and how to communicate in ways that parents know that we're listening, but also being able to have tough conversations that sometimes come up in those things. And I think parents need to be our partners, but we need to be able to communicate with our parents what our expectations are, what it is we see. And I think too often something that I was worried to do when I was a classroom teacher, but now, it's just become a habit as a principal now, but being able to call a parent and talk to them, and especially when, they're upset about something, largely they're not, they may be upset with you in the moment, but just listening to them and understanding what it is that's the issue, and then trying to figure out how you can partner with them to fix whatever it is or meet the need that they have. But I think sometimes we often talk in a way that parents might not feel that they feel like we're talking down or that we're talking at them. And I feel like that's an awareness we need to have at times, because they might be embarrassed if we're calling, or if we're saying, this is the third time I've called, or, if those words we say are so important to be able to partner with our parents, and then kind of build that wall down a little bit to say, like, hey, we're not here to like judge you as a parent. We're here to help you, because we're all on the same team, because we want your son or daughter to be the best version of themselves, so I think that we just got to be careful about that. But Talk to Me by Kim Bearden is a good tool for that.
Thank you for sharing the knowledge on that in that book. Thank you. Shika, from Central Office, what does that look like? What do you see there in the big picture?
I think Adam is spot on, and what Constance has said as well, that we definitely need to make sure parents understand that we're in it together. I think transparency helps us to kind of bring that message home, instead of, a lot of times in education, we come across haughty because we feel like we have to be the experts and we have to say all of the jargon and, all of the terms, just be a real person and transparent with the parents and speak to them, if you're a parent, from a parent's perspective. And a lot of times they will, understand a lot better. And I think that we do also miss a lot of opportunities. We spend all of this money on professional development, have the parents come in to some of these PDs that we're paying all of these thousands of dollars for, to learn beside us, because what says partnership more than you being here learning with me? That really says that we're in this together. And the other thing that I'll be instituting this year from our district is that, parents really should see us as a resource. So when we're having career fairs or expo at the Gateway here in our area, one thing that we'll host is, hey, come in, we'll help you with resumes. We will help you prepare for the interview. we'll, do some interviewing tips with you, because if you see me as a resource and a true resource center, then that makes you look at me differently than, just coming in for, some other things, or I'm calling you about, your child all the time. You actually see this as a resource center, which I think the school should be known as that in the community, and just making sure that they really do have access to the resources. I put together a full community resource guide for our parents this year. And when a lot of times I'm the hearing officer. So when I'm in the hearings and people are telling me about things where they have been homeless, okay, this whole guide, let me show you, this is where food is. This is where if your electricity is out, you can go here and get that paid. Everything is in there, because if you ever need anything, it's important for them to have the resources, but we should be those people that provided the resource. We already have them. So just giving them what they need.
Awesome thoughts and great action, Shika. Charlie, big picture around the country, you go talk to everybody about this. I know this is one of the things that you hit.
It does. We have to partner with parents. All of them, everybody has been completely accurate. It does take a village. Parents are essential to this whole school community. We want the whole school community. It's a community. We want everybody to thrive. We don't want one person in the community left behind. And so we have to bring parents and caregivers in and recognize that their roles are so important. How do we do that? Well, we talk about the 9 essential skills. And so I was saying that earlier about equip teachers, and we need to equip staff. We need to equip but parents as well, because we all have to have the same common language. If you think about, if we're trying to learn a new language, everybody's got to speak the same common language. So we need everybody to have those skills. And we also say that about students. The problem with that is, how do we roll all of that out all the time? Well, when we work with parents, we need to have topics that are very specific. And so, for example, our anxiety and avoidance, well, so many parents are dealing with kids who are have anxiety and are avoidant. And so we use that topic to pull them in to the conversation or the training, or how to show authority without being mean. Well, you can be a teacher or you can be a parent learning that skill. But we teach that we all have to use that same common, simple language that we all understand, and make it so simple that everybody will remember how to use it, and then we'll use it together.
Love it. So awesome. Dr. Moreno.
I am so glad that you guys are saying this, and I am just kind of absorbing all of this, because I have actually a parent training next month with a school, because they train all of their parents, and so they're bringing me in. And yes, absolutely. I'm like, they have to have a resource in their hand. They can't just come get the training and then, leave. So, I'm putting this training together, but I wanted to get what are they doing in their district, so I can include that in that resource, right? Because you're absolutely right. What's the use of training them if they don't take something home with them? So I'm excited about all of the knowledge that was dropped, because I'm going to make sure that I'm addressing those things as well, because I know what I was going to say, but guess what? Just hearing you guys, I'm thinking, yep, I need to include that. Yep, I need to include that. So awesome, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Guys, we're at the last question. We're at an hour and a half practically. I can't believe it's been that long, because it doesn't feel that long. Last question is a lightning round before I Teleganas questions. And I'm going to have Adam start us off. Real quickly, sir, it's a fill in the blank. So super easy, right? And the question is, or the sentence is, hey, educator, in 25-26.
Hey, educator, in 25-26, remember that we do this for students, and that you never have to take yourself too seriously, because a bad day is a bad day. But you come back tomorrow and show up for kids, everything will be okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Very complex sentence, but that was awesome. Constance, how about you? Finish this sentence for me, ma'am. Hey, educator, in 2025-2026.
Keep going. I know you may have some rough days, but remember that there's a kid there that is counting on you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Shika Houston.
In 25, 26, just keep showing up and making a difference. You have probably are not even aware of how many children that you have impacted, but just keep showing up to impact those lives every day. They need you.
Awesome. And closes out Charlie Pack. Hey, educator, in 2025, 2026.
Master self-awareness and find your calm.
Awesome. And Edwin Garcia says, keep going. Love it. So thank you, Edwin Garcia, for that comment. And let's do it, Josh. Let's do
All
the
right.
extra
Lightning round, guys. Lightning round. It's not a dissertation. If I get close, I'm invading your space. That means you're going too long. All right. It's only question number two. Adam, Constance, you probably know or you probably don't know ganas. Ganas is a spiritual word for all Hispanics, all of us. That's the only thing that we're global. That's the only thing that we all agree upon. Argentina, Bolivia, Ecuador, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba. Insert your Hispanic. We all use that word in the same context. It's a there is no equate. People say grit. There's no such thing. Grit is not ganas. It's a spiritual word where a grandma tells her grandchild this, and we know what it's a generational loving word. And that's how I want you to answer this in the lightning round with a lot of ganas. So we're starting with you, Principal of the Year for your state for NASSP. I had to give you your flowers, brother. I had to give you your flowers. The man in the state, the top dog. Perrote. So here we go, Adam. Lightning round. Give advice to a first-year teacher.
Give yourself some grace and do something for yourself every day.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student which brought you happiness.
All right, so I had it pulled up. Student said, the impact you've made on not just my life, but probably so many others is very important to me. I have so much respect for the way you led the school and interacted with students. I even remember when you came and gave me a hug after my car accident sophomore year.
Eso. Send some flowers to an active educator who inspires you in your work.
All right, this is going to sound like I'm sucking up, but I'm not. Our superintendent, Roger Barup, he could retire 5 years ago if he wanted to. He's still in the game because he cares about what we're doing and he believes in what we're doing. And he challenges me and challenges all of us in a positive way. And that we are where we're at because of him. So I just want him to, he's 38 years in the profession and he deserves all the kudos for that.
Name one person that people should follow on social media.
Tony Catani, had the pleasure of meeting him, and that's who I got connected with you, Josh, on. So he was the National High School Principal of the Year out of the state of New Jersey, Lenape Pride. So go follow Tony. He's amazing.
What is the best movie series, Rocky or The Matrix?
Rocky.
Which holiday did you prefer to celebrate, St. Patrick's or Mardi Gras?
I'm a St. Patrick's guy. I studied abroad in Ireland. My junior year of high school, I got to go St. Patty's.
Enough said. March Madness or the Olympics?
March Madness.
In your opinion, which is the best series on either HBO or Netflix?
All right, I'm a Peaky Blinders guy. I thought that was one of the best things. I'm a historical fiction dude, so go see Peaky Blinders.
And how can people get a hold of the Principal of the Year in your state?
You can email me. It's alangto@gpsbulldogs.org. You can follow me on X at AdamLangto81. And if you need my email again, just go to the website. You can call Granville High School, ask for me. I'll take your call.
The man right there, Constance Sherrard. Here we go. Give advice to a first-year teacher.
It gets better over time. Forgive yourself for the mistakes that you make. I promise you it gets better.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or a student which brought you happiness.
I was just looking at my email. I have a first-year teacher. Well, she's not a first-year teacher, but she's transitioned from one grade to a higher grade, and I've been having to go in and help her. And so she sent me an email that says, "Thank you so much for being so patient with me. I appreciate you so much." And so that, warms my heart anytime, you're working in this field. That pat on the back kind of helps you keep going.
Send some flowers to an active educator who inspires you in your work.
I'm gonna say Principal Kafele because as I transitioned into this being an AP, I reached out to him. I let him know that I read some of his books, and I think it's just been being a part of the AP and New Principals Academy has really inspired me.
Name one person the audience should follow on social media.
Anyone that is a part of the Fantastic Four.
What is the best movie series, Rocky or The Matrix?
Rocky.
Which holiday did you prefer to celebrate, St. Patrick's or Mardi Gras?
St. Patrick's.
March Madness or the Olympics?
March Madness.
In your opinion, what is the best series either on HBO or Netflix?
So I don't get the opportunity to watch anything that much, so I really can't offer a suggestion right now.
All right. And how can people get a hold of you?
I am on LinkedIn, and so if you look up Constance Sherrod, you'll be able to find me there.
There you go. Charlie Peck, give advice to a first-year teacher.
Find your dream team.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student which brought you happiness.
Okay, a former student said, I just wanted to say out of every teacher I've ever had through elementary to college, I still regard you as the teacher who had the biggest positive influence and impact on me.
Yes, so send some flowers to an active educator who inspires you in your work.
Andrea Bittner, she works with those very vulnerable and marginalized L kids.
Name one person the audience should follow on social media.
Dr. Gabor Mate. It's DrGaborMate.
What is the best series, Rocky or The Matrix?
Rocky.
Which holiday did you prefer to celebrate, St. Patrick's or Mardi Gras?
St. Patrick's.
March Madness or the Olympics?
March Madness.
In your opinion, which is the best series, either on HBO or Netflix?
Breaking Bad.
There we go. And how can people get a hold of you and your services, ma'am?
Just DM me anywhere on social media at Charlie Peck or go to thrivingeducator.org.
My sister, mi hermana from South Carolina, with a broken heart for those Gamecocks. It's all right. We'll bounce. Here we go. Give advice to a first-year teacher.
Speak up. You have expertise too.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that brought you happiness.
So this is from a student. During my 7th grade year, I kept getting into fights. During my 8th grade year, I lost an important lady in my life. And then I had an angel, shout out to Sheikah Houston. This woman came in and saved me and led me on to the right track.
Love it. Name one person. Send some flowers to an active educator who inspires you in your work.
Definitely Principal Kafele, Principal Sean Hurt, Principal Josh Tovar, Principal Dr. Tammy Taylor, everybody who's a part of the Fantastic Four, the real fam members, some who are commenting here, and also Zaretta Hammond. I loved her. I love her book. Culturally Relevant Teaching in the Brain really helped to shape my educational philosophy.
Name one person the audience should follow on social media.
Everybody on the Fantastic Four PD.
Rocky or The Matrix?
The Matrix.
Which holiday did you prefer to celebrate, St. Patrick's or Mardi Gras?
Mardi Gras, New Orleans is my favorite place in the world.
March Madness or the Olympics?
Olympics.
Which is the best series on either HBO or Netflix?
It has to be Netflix. I don't even watch HBO, but I don't really watch TV, so I couldn't really tell you a series. I don't have time to watch TV.
All right. And how can people get a hold of one of the two doctors?
So either I'm on all social media platforms at Sheikah Houston or Create and Educate.
Love it. Thank you very much, panel. Hold on. Don't hang up. Wait till after we get off the show. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Another, boom, great Grand Slam show. All this knowledge dropped, and you know what? It's free. We know that we're broke, guys. It is what it is. We got to deal with it. We can only control the funds that we have before us. And whatever's out there, these individuals on this panel and all the other shows on the podcast that Charlie does, the podcast that Sheikah does, is just non-stop knowledge for you. And you know what? We're all in it together. If you're in Maine or Florida, if you're in Alaska or Hawaii, or anywhere in the 48, we're all in it together. And you're not alone. You choose to be alone, You got to be able to reach out. There's so many sources for you, because you know what? All our kids are facing the same thing. The repercussions of COVID will be going on for a while. And it's how we grow closer together as a beautiful profession, the profession that creates all the other professions, education, and we can learn from each other. So take this time to like and share it. Go follow all these other podcasts, because we're all in it and we're doing the best job. We're doing the Lord's work. We're builders, and we're preparing the next generation of leaders on all of these shows. And we need you. We need you to be reaching out and learning from each other. Join us next week, as we're going to have our special needs show, supporting our kids with special needs. And after that, we're going to have our principal roundtable. And after that, the following week, the culture show. So come and join us. It's all free. It's all people with tenures, years, and decades of experience. And it's all for you. Panel, say goodbye to everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Thank
Good
you.
day.